Hello, DGBA Swarm. We are here with your PRs. I am JR Boyce alongside Peyton and Veno. Um, we can kind of just go into them if we want to.
Yeah, let's go.
Obviously, these are subjective. Disagree with our ratings all we want. It doesn't really matter that much. 16th can be first at the end of the season, etc. Let's start off with number 16, Astrolydia. What are your guys' thoughts on this team?
Falls off after top 3, and there's no noticeable great breaker on it.
Yet another innocent draft ruined by Gliscor. What a shitty mon.
Yeah, it's no surprise.
But yeah, it kind of feels like this team like struggles to get anything done, and like personally, like that was like kind of like the basis for like a lot of my rankings. Just like, will a team have like the tools to, win a long game? You know, be able to put large pressure on its opponent, and I think that the answer, to both of those questions with this team is the most egregious no. There's really no like immediate breaking power here. The best breaker is like Volcanion, which usually has to run a twice item to do so, and like that obviously they go into the whole shore of other weaknesses with this team's removal not being super reliable. It just kind of feels like there's no way to like start out a game, like considering that you know, like Zama, Zera, Zurud are all decently strong ones, but they usually can't break immediately because their counters will like still be present and they're not the strongest mons to begin with. I just feel like this team is a bunch of like Pokemon thrown together, and like there's not really a way to like get things going here.
My big thing also was the top 3 is also main. Like Zera can be special, of course, but like they all kind of mainly go on the physical side. The team's special presence is Togekiss, Volcanion, and Togekiss doesn't really like being offensive most of the time, and then Volcanion is really pressured to break, and it's also pressured to be one of the ice answers because it's ice resist Volcanion Zama, which isn't really ideal. If Kyurem gets a free turn,
sometimes.
if an ice type gets a free turn on this team, kind of have to pick one, which isn't exactly great, especially for a team that can't really pressure mons to begin with.
Unironically, I think Gliscor, Latias, and Togekiss have to run setup a lot to try to make up for the fact this team isn't overwhelming, and he has to try to break in a bit more unconventional way. Like, usually something like Gliscor, I feel like is better by, like, you know, just sitting there, like, trying to be a pivot or something, but I feel like he unironically wants more offensive Gliscors with this team because it just doesn't do much outside of that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, Volcanion, like, which is matchup fishing. It's not really that consistent.
Yeah, it's just like not a role that like you want mons like Gliscor or Latias or like Togekiss to be in, because like they're great on like supplementary offense, but like when you have to like use them to like try to break a team, and well like like JR Boy said, I think each of those mons have their own, you know, kind of defensive weaknesses. Like I think this team is pretty weak to a lot of common offensive types, at least in its bulk. Most notably, like offensive ices and fairies will absolutely like shred this. And if you're running Volcanion and Alati as offensive, water doesn't look great. Ground is annoying because all your ground checks are passive, so like you won't have a lot of great ways to deal with like the stronger grounds. And it's really hard to kind of like bring a cohesive defensive team with this either, I would say.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, we have to put at 16 here, so we have to please someone. So
true.
Mike is that.
I don't think that was mine because I could hear it too, so Peyton's fault.
Frog SIP.
Anyway, I think we can move on to 15th with Craft. This was another passive-looking team, if you guys wanted to elaborate.
Kieran Black is the only mon on this team that will do anything on a consistent basis offensively. Maybe Clef, but running Clef offensive every game is pretty hard. So
yeah, I also feel like
Wincon,
yeah. Wincon and the Cross was going to have to come more often than he'd like it to as well.
the big thing with Clefable is you want to try to draft a lot of the roles Clefable does itself, so it's never pressured as much to do one specific role on your team because you lack it. Like you want the most versatile Clefable possible, and I feel like when you're just lacking the presence, you're gonna want offensive or like a win con Clefable every week, which is really it makes the Mon less value in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like drafting like super bulky teams around a clef, unless you're using like Theo Stall, is just really unreliable because like a lot of mons will just end up doing the same thing as clef, and it just like turns into a passive bundle that doesn't really do anything. I feel like it's like kind of like a similar thing with the Mew clef teams with clef Necrozma, but Necrozma's worse because unlike Mew, it's going to have matches where it just will not do anything because the other team like has a dark that will be able to stomach it. So basically, like this team will end up relying on like KB like Intelli on matchup fishing, I like to do stuff which isn't great, and the bulk is pretty easily taken advantage of as well because like it doesn't really have a good way to like threaten the offensive mons in a return, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, Taunt is pretty good against this team. Like,
And also just Earthquake in general against this team
Earthquake in general is pretty good against this. It can handle grounds offensively pretty well, but like Superior's the only reliable ground resist. And Claydol is a ground resist, but it's also a Claydol. It's like the most passive mon on this team, and it's already a really passive team.
Hey yo, Serp got glare, but however, I will say,
True.
like Superior instantly feels so much worse than offensive mon when you're not stacked offensively. Like it just feels a lot more easier to cover. People usually are going to have a resist to it that will stop it. So yeah, I feel like you will have some struggle actually doing stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Dude, I mocked with a Claydol when I was helping a team in a team tour recently. Regardless of whether you think that mon is bringable in a matchup, it still isn't. That is a 1-point mon.
I had used it in low tier 6 and under, and it was unbringable there, and it's supposed to be one of the top tier mons. Like, it's so bad.
Also, yeah, like Serp as your only ground resist is very iffy because like Serp doesn't force much on its own. I really hope that this team does not play Lando T.
Yeah.
No, he has his answers. Air Balloon Clef, guys. He's got this. He got this.
True.
He's got this.
Or Balloon Tentacruel, you can pick.
His best answer is like Scrafty.
Honestly, yeah.
Unironically,
Scrafty's like the best edge quick answer on this team, and it's not really a good thing.
Not a sentence I thought I would be hearing today, but it's not wrong. Not accurate.
We could move on to 14 GWyddion. This team is pre-transactions. The transactions aren't really like big or anything, but as this team is presented, what are your guys' thoughts?
The top mons on this are pretty good. However, it doesn't have any type of like defensive backbone or like it's not that versatile. Like in terms of like how you have to play with this, you just have to hope like your mons like Weavile and stuff have good matchups and go from there. But I do think you could definitely win games with just the offense alone because it's pretty threatening.
Yeah, like there's ways to win games with this team, but like it really kind of relies on mons that don't always have good matchups, having good matchups like Feeny, Scizor, ThunderT, Cobalion. Those mons don't really have good matchups all the time. Galadium, Weavile pretty much do, but like that's pretty much like the only thing here that really shines. Like Peyton said, like this team like doesn't really have a great like flexible way in like playing its game. It like kind of has to hope that like the other team will like let it play its game, which is not amazing. The rockers on this team are also very low tier, which is like something that you want more on offense. You probably want more hazards than this team has.
Yeah, especially with Weavile. Like you have two of the best knockers in the format. Like you probably like even like I guess he did draft Spikes, but you know, Rockers.
He drafted Chestnut.
His top 6 mods are all like decent at knocking.
Oh yeah, true.
Well,
Wait,
again,
all
like,
of them pick knock. Wait, his top 6 actually have knock. That's crazy.
So look at like he probably has like, the 2 best knockers in the tier with Mega Glade Weavile, and then 3 decent ones.
Yeah, that's actually really insane.
Yeah, but like it just doesn't feel like taken advantage of. No ground is also.
So I
DT is the ground type on this team, which
yeah, he
isn't
drafted Kabalion,
even
so
post
no one else
transactions.
affected.
It doesn't really change. So the transactions that are made effective week 2 are Cobalion and Fiero for what was it?
Gyarados and something else.
Gyarados and G-Fisk.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh God.
I feel like he really wanted that ground type.
G-Fisk is my favorite ground type on a Feeny team.
I really feel like if this team had a ground type over a Cobalion, it would be pretty good.
Like
Because like that
Kabalion,
also-
A real ground type. A real ground
Like
type.
But like,
like Viscore.
Rhyperior would actually be really good on this over Cobalion, but like because like you have like Scizor and Gallade, it feels completely useless outside of rocks.
Yeah.
I can see that. Oh, or like big Rhydon. I'm a Rhydon fan.
True. Big
Rhyperior's take is right on is the backup option, I guess.
Yeah, it's like kind of more like an example.
But
like,
yeah. I
yeah,
feel like
you could like fix that unneeded one.
if this team gets out offense, I feel like it's just going to struggle to win because it's entirely banking on its offense, and it has a tendency to get out. Like Mega Gallade's one of its biggest flaws. Its 110 speed tier is kind of awkward. It leaves it to being revenged by a lot of faster like flying types and stuff. And like DT's on the slower, so like Weavile's a good speed option, but like if Weavile dies, then the speed options really aren't reliable or there to begin with.
To be fair, in terms of flying types, the only mon that you really have to worry about is Torn.
Yeah.
But like this team hard loses to Torn in the long term.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, after Thundurus gets hit by a hurricane, it becomes instantly down bad.
Yeah, basically.
Or if it gets knocked its boots or something, yeah.
I mean, his other play is dodging Hurricane, which is always a viable strategy. But
So true.
I ideally wouldn't want to rely on a game being off of a 30% miss. So
Horn in this matchup kind of only needs Taunt and Hurricane to win.
Yeah, just like Taunt. Actually, Heat Wave for
honestly,
neutral.
the thing is, if you don't bring
Just use
Axel,
Scizor.
if you don't bring Axel too, like because of how bad the Rockers are on this team, you don't even really have to bring Boots Torn, I mean, and you could just like bring Yachi, which punishes if you don't bring Axel pretty much. You pretty much have to.
Which is the only item on Torn, unfortunately.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we can move on to 13. Oh, clicked the wrong thing. To 13 with Abriel's team. This is a bit of an interesting one. Liberate Zapdos and then Regen Sand. What are you guys' thoughts?
That top 3 is good. I don't like anything else. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Galar Weezing can have some funny matchups, but yeah, it's just mainly the top 3 are bust.
I don't know. I personally think that Mega Ult and G-Weezing both will not like get you like what you want out of a fairy, and with Drill, mostly like you kind of need like that like special fairy or like that special normal to be able to like sponge like the like the hits that a Stu would normally want to take. This team's like top 4 is pretty good, I would say. Like Cinder's Zapstone Brotang is pretty good at like covering a lot of bases. While I think that Tang could have been a cheaper one, I guess, but I don't know why he chose to go Sand with this. It makes the offense really slow, and it really doesn't give a Cinderace or like Zapdos pretty much like anything to like capitalize on the momentum that they gain, especially Cinderace, because Cinder and Girotita mostly lose to the same mons, and like I feel like defensively this is just very susceptible to getting opened up as well over the course of the game because of those speed problems and its weaknesses to some
Yeah, I think the big
common
problem
types.
speed. Yeah, I think a big problem with a lot of like sand teams is the fact that a lot of times like you kind of have to rely on the sand itself to actually revenge some mons, which is very silly. But I don't really think the sand was really as necessary here. I'm assuming he just kind of wanted to use it. So, fair enough. I don't think sand is that ideal ever as an archetype of this gen.
There also is only rockers too, and like you want rocks
Yeah.
to pressure like a lot of the Cinderace
Yeah.
checks, which is like a bigger issue.
He has spikes Frostlass and T-Spikes G-Weezing, but I mean, those aren't really coming to games that
Yeah, to his
often
credit
with
though.
this
To his
with
credit
these
though,
top mons.
you know, for the bad extra drill matchups that are out there, so like the Skarmories and the Celestials and stuff like that. You know what? Zapdos does kind of check them. Well,
Kinda,
until
yes.
also Meteor Beams anyway. But you know, it's not awful synergy with Sand, but
Yeah, like it's not awful. Just like I think you can pretty easily like capitalize on like a zap coming in, so it's not ideal ever. But
yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with that. And also, like, even if you get toxic because you're taking Sand Chip as well, like that adds up really quickly.
I think Zapdos is going to be on the pressure to be offensive side on this team because like bulky waters with on against this team are, I mean, as Veno said, pretty consistently with a lot of the top offensive mons. Those are going to be the checks to top to this team. So I think it
sure
can win
farms this
games.
team
Like
ideally.
Cinderace, Liberi Zapdos, like on its own is nasty.
And
But
Slowbro can help switch into the
we
waters
just
and
have
teleport into those too, so that helps.
we also just have so many nasty like top threes or top fours in the league to begin with all the unbans. So like it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
set yourself apart without like having a more complete team.
Also, Dollar a demon. The thing's gonna carry for real.
True. Dottler is broken. I won my first
Hey,
ship with it.
Webs. Nice.
It was also
Yo,
like
Dollar's a cute little guy. I like him.
He's kind of cool.
on to number 12 with Turk. This is one of, spoiler alert, one of two Latios Gren teams in Swarm. This one
I
was the
can't believe
lower
you
one.
spoiled that.
I know.
That's horrible.
Fire me now. But yeah, this is another interesting team. What are your guys' thoughts?
I feel like if I'm prepping against this team, I would just want to get up rocks and then just profit. That, like I feel like
Yeah.
for being a Garm team, like the removal on this team is not very threatening. Like, what are you gonna do? Bring Defog Mega Latios and lose your best offensive threat? Like,
True. Defog Gligar coming clutch. Don't forget the spin Torkoal.
yo, true. They got Defog Gligar as well. Like, I just not that threatened by it.
Yeah.
Same with Run Mode too. Like, pretty weak removal, and I feel like I don't think Darm is necessarily a bad mon, but I feel like it's kind of a mon you need to like have your eyes of supporting throughout like as you're drafting, and I don't think he really supported it. I think he kind of slapped it on a bit.
Yeah. I mean, personally, like I feel like my main problem with this team is that, like, yeah, kind of like Peyton said, it relies on GDOM to do a lot, and like, while it's not like a bad mon, I think that you likely want it on a more offensive archetype, because like you'll have like other mons that will pressure. I think GDOM checks more. Like Lottie Grunt is good, but like there are really no other mons that will be able to consistently come as like offensive mons after that, and Mega Latios is even a tough ask all the time because it's not as like strong as you would usually think it is. I feel, and
Yeah, it is weaker than Latios, so it does have
yeah,
that.
yeah, and like this is also like another case where like the bulk is just really odd and like will kind of get taken advantage of very easily. Like I can't really name a mon on this team that will be able to like threaten like opposing offense as a bulky mon. I guess Lax kinda, but like it does fall into more passive sets if it's being used in a bulky purpose this gen.
Yeah, I feel
Lax
like
is
he was
still
thinking
pretty
offense first. Sorry.
Lax is still pretty susceptible to like taunt and
Yeah.
phasing and stuff. It's a
I
little
will
bit
say
abusable.
I feel like after the top 3 bonds, he was drafting just mostly fat. I mean, there's a random Garm there too, but like that. And also, the thing with Aegislash is also a pretty good offensive threat. However, because of its speed and also just being a weird steel type, like it, I don't want to necessarily call it a matchup fish, but it's definitely gonna have weeks where you don't want to bring it, and that's really tough when you don't really have other great options for offense.
That's not a mon that will want to slap a choice band or specs or policy on every week, but like as you said on this team, unless you're trying to win with Latios Gren every week, with Garm as a bit of a breaker, then it'll be tough.
I mean, you can probably do some stuff with like offensive Sylveon, I guess, and also like not a big fan of Nasty Plot Rotom, but I'm sure it can match up fish. So he has options. It's not horrible, but definitely not my cup of tea with it.
I'm not a big fan personally, but I think Turk is the best player of all
So
time. So
true.
like I'm sure that
True.
he can.
He
Yeah,
made
also, I just
playoffs
don't.
last season, so he'll do so
Dude,
again.
He drafted a lot of fat stuff, and I don't think I really would want to bring any of it outside
Yeah.
of like Snorlax, and that's kind of crazy.
I think that the bottom four is just really abusable, in my opinion.
Yeah, you get that.
Move on to Metro at number 11. He does have a logo. I just didn't have access to it, and we're recording now, so shit. Shadowlock. What are you guys' thoughts on this team?
Metro is my guy. I don't know what the hell he was doing though.
The guy
Quadruple horse.
going to back Oraz.
Quadruple horse with like Haxorus and like it's pretty fire. But
yeah, it is fire.
I think it definitely has like ways to cheese out offensive games. Like Mew is like so versatile, and like on an like offensive like team like this, it can be applied to a lot of offensive like strategies to like let you do a ton of stuff, which is like which is probably this team's biggest strength by far. And like Genesect Spec, like Keldeo, Glacier, Haxorus are extremely threatening in their own right. The bulk isn't too bad, and like I don't think that there's really bulky mons that are too passive and like can be taken advantage of. Like Mew, Mudsdale, Rotom Heat, Audino, Serena, like to an extent. I'll have ways to get out of kind of like dangerous bulky situations and like let him get back into his offense, which helps him. But I guess like the biggest weakness of this team is like getting things like started. Like he really relies on like Genesect and like Haxorus, which aren't the strongest guys because I believe Genesect is drives only. I think so.
Yeah, it's drives only, no speed boosting.
Yeah, so like it is pretty hard to like get things going, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, like, unironically, Haxorus is like the breaker on this team, which I think Haxorus is kind of slept on. But I do feel like he's going to have to break in a bit more unconventional. That's the word I'm looking for. Ways like he's gonna want to bring Glacier some weeks. He's gonna want to bring like an offensive Serena. He's gonna yeah. He's gonna want to probably bring an offensive Mudsdale. Like he's gonna want to break with some of the more like low tier stuff that people are probably not gonna be as expecting. Because I feel like otherwise he's just gonna struggle. I will say he is a huge Keldeo stan, so I'm not even surprised he took that mon. This guy loves horses or something, I swear.
This team has a lot of setup potential, but like immediate breaking, yeah, Keldeo Specs Keldeo can break, and the other breakers are flawed. But like I could definitely see games being won just putting them together and clicking either setup buttons or like spamming attacks, and like it's a pretty decent the offense is still pretty decent on this team overall.
I think it helps that the
weird.
Pokemon on this team can still fill a pretty decent offensive roles. They're not past
Yeah.
outside of like Mega Audino, though that could be like a cheesy.
Even then,
sometimes.
Mega Audino could like run Calm Mind and not be passive all of a sudden because it has a lot of coverage.
If you don't actually break it, it can actually like kind of destroy a team. But I'd say outside of that, most of these mons have enough immediate pressure, which is kind of nice for it. And also, I think just having you like as a mon that exists. If you bring the right set, it'll probably win.
This team definitely looks like it's going to be annoying to prep for a lot of coaches because there's just so much to take into account. But a lot of
and also Genesect Spectre does support a lot of like what people would usually probably use to checking Mew, so that does like it's okay.
Now we can move on to number 10 with Timber 2. I think he said somewhere that this was the second ever draft. And if so, he brought the heat, as we saw in the reveal in the tryout. So we'll see if he can do so here. What are you guys' thoughts on this team?
Rainless Pert is based.
Rainless Pert is really based.
Pretty fire. I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah.
I hope this team does well.
It's just like I feel like after like the top 3, which is actually pretty good. Despite how much I hate Infernape, I think A plus Grind is pretty potent because Grind does abuse Nape pretty well, or I think Nape does abuse the tools that Gren has pretty well, and Latios is never bad either, but
Like, he does have decent pivoting too, like to help. Like he does have a big Mana Buzz and a big Mega Swampert that should help with it, help getting them in. But the Klefki does feel like a bit of a point drain.
Yeah.
Shaman probably could have been a cheaper grass. I'm not.
Shaman was
huge
like
fan
the
of it.
first one on this draft. I'm like, I don't really understand the point of this here, and then that kind of continued for the next 4 picks.
Regular Weezing is base though. That one is fire.
Regular Weezing.
I just
I
have to
actually agree with Jacobs in this one. Regular Weezing is just a better Pokemon for its value than G Weezing. I will stand by that.
I mean, like, yeah, but like, what does regular Weezing do? I feel though. I feel like the big problem with
It's
this
more
is that after,
passive.
like, I mean, like, yeah, just like every mon on this team, like, well, the bulk energize is okay, gets taken advantage of. I don't see why Klefki is on this team. I feel like it's a large kind of momentum step, especially, and it like screws up a lot of like the defensive prowess that I think this team might have otherwise. It just feels very like passable and like able to be taken advantage of if you like play it right.
I think the main things they can do, I feel like, are like screens into a setup win comp, because I think Latios and Nape are both pretty good setup mons on this team, and then spikes for Ashgren to take some pressure off of it to set its own spikes. Because Ashgren does like the residual chip from either the residual chip from hazard stacking or forcing mons into boots to which allow it to be able to to beat its checks better, or not beat its checks, but beat mons that can run cheesy items like resist berries and stuff to neutralize it.
Okay. The real reason why he drafted Klefki, I'm calling it now. I think he wants the prankster rain dance.
Yes.
Yes, the manual rain. It's time.
Manual rain into Mega Pert, no one will see it coming.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you give her like a Jax button or some shit, and it'll essentially be like a U-turn.
Yes. So true.
He got this. We're just gonna ignore that. Means it's not Damp Rock, but
But it is on the expensive side, unfortunately. So
yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily worth it. And I do think Infernape is a bit weird to have as your third best offensive one.
he spent a lot of points on the top 2 is the thing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like that's the thing with this season is like a lot of the top 2 or 3 are going to be so expensive that a lot of the support options are going to be cheaper and worse, and it makes the team's overall balance a little weird. But we'll see how it plays out in the season. Honestly,
I will say, overall, I don't think any Pokemon in this team is necessarily useless. I think he did a pretty good job at like drafting a bunch of bringable bonds. I just don't know how necessary they are. Yeah, like
I would agree with that.
yeah.
Like I think the most unbringable is Electivire, and even that's gonna have its niches in some like flying spam matchups. Like, yeah,
Evire can help with breaking a lot of the waters too. It can put pressure on them because those are the only potential common checks between the top 3.
yeah, it has good coverage too, so it helps.
We can move on to the last coach of our bottom half, Mr. Brother Quaing, with the Pult Mega Maw. I will say, I looked at the speed tiers for this when I was originally like writing notes, and I saw that the top 6 are Pult, Raikou, G-Zap, Gourgeist Small, Gourgeist Base, and Gourgeist Large, which is I just thought that was pretty funny. But what are you guys' thoughts on this team overall?
I like what he was going for. I like the idea of having like trick room. Like he committed pretty hard to the trick room, which I really appreciate. But also he still has like a speed presence. He didn't like he can play without the trick room, and I think that's pretty cool.
I mean, like, yeah, like this team like has a lot of ways to like abuse its like threats. Like Pult, Zap, Burt all have pretty good ways of like getting mons in, and like this team like does have I think like kind of like Payne said, like this team does feel like it has like mono bringable mons, like and like he will kind of be able to force offensive progress over the course of the game. The main weaknesses of like this team are that it kind of feels one-dimensional as an offense team, and only Rock or Swampert is pretty annoying for most offense because Rocks is often very much appreciated.
Yeah,
Like, you just
only
taunt the Swampert, and he's not getting up rocks. Like,
only Rock or Swampert was. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for this team, I think. Because I mean,
hey, technically there's a Mega Mawile.
technically there's a Mega Mawile, but if you're, I mean, I feel like Mega Mawile's pressured to do a lot of things it doesn't want to do, like check certain dark types, I should say, set rocks and be like more of a defensive mon than like it would want to be. I mean, we'll see in practice because offensively, like P2 is a pretty good like blanket bulk mon, and like TR P2 into Mega Maw will probably claim 3 or 4 in the right matchups. But like against the Darkrai team, for instance, I fear for this team because it's gonna have to. It's like Scarf Gyarados. Scarf Gyarados is gonna be pretty telegraphed, and then from there, like it's pretty much pick 'em on. I feel.
Or Prey Trick Room is up.
Or Prey Trick Room is up.
But one of the two. Yeah, I agree with that.
Like I do really love the offensive presence of this team. Like Pult Mega Maw is just nasty.
He took like a pretty basic idea in Pult Mega Maw, and he did like innovate like with Trick Room with it, which I appreciate. I think it's cool.
And move on to the top half with JimmyG with the round 1 Mega Scissor and the round 3 Donphan making it into our top half because he's the GOAT.
Yeah, you see all the Naganadels, the Mega Zams, the Libro Cinderace is taken, and JimmyG held his ground and took Mega Scissor, our hero. I hope he wins Swarm. No bias.
I mean, JimmyG is probably like the best player ever. This team's biggest strength is probably like its ability to, or like its amount of other win cons that it has. Like every mon on this team feels like like getting like server purpose or like winning a game, I guess. I guess like the biggest weakness is like getting at start if he doesn't like get a good lead with it, because like his fast mon is Gengar, so he's not going to be like really like forcing a bunch of progress in terms of like scaring him on out and then like setting up, like he has to do it early, which is probably like the biggest weakness. Like if he had like 130 speed mon, like this team would be really good, I think.
I also will say, like, he doesn't really have that many good options for Scarfers outside of Rotom Wash when you don't have great speed options in general with Gengar. So I do think that's also probably a concern.
He has a lot of priority though. I mean, Scarf Gengar is pretty viable too, I think, but like you don't want to. It's not a mon you want to Scarf every week. It's kind of awkward to be choice locked with it.
Yeah, it's really weak Scarfed.
But like it's not like this team is complete. Like he has a decent amount of solid priority. He has like agility Gmolt that can, like it can take a lot of neutral hits and outspeed and revenge that way. And then the Hail's ult. I mean, Hail's ult can be outsped by some fast Scarfers, but like if you're running a fast Scarfer against a fastest mon Gengar team, then all the power to you.
Yeah. I mean, I do think revenging stuff will still be a bit awkward, but he definitely does have the priority, as you said. Like,
yeah,
try to handle it. Like,
yeah, so the problem with like, the problem with like his scarfing situation is that his best Scarfer is also his best breaker. So like, it's pretty hard.
Yeah,
and Gengar's not a great breaker anyway.
Yeah, and also like his other best Scarfer is also like his Gloomon that's supposed to be the pivot, I also think he has some cheese potential with Trick or Bruniclus here, if he doesn't necessarily want to go the heal route and have like, I don't know, Bruniclus over Ninetales. Like, I could see Trick or Martezol doing work in the Conkeldurr.
Yeah, the mini Trick Room core is pretty potent. I'm not a big Conk fan, but like if you give it a free turn in Trick Room, then it will probably claim a lot, kind of like the Mega Mawile situation we just had.
Yeah, it hits really hard. It's pretty hard to deal with when it's in. Just getting it in is the hard part.
Yeah.
Which, if he starts on the right foot, I feel like this team could be very hard to beat.
You could see that.
That could be a big if.
Anyway, move on to our 7th team, Mr. Killer ASCII.
So I see Veno's favorite Pokemon in the 8th slot.
Oh yeah, which one is this again? Yeah, let's take a look. Oh, Comfy is so trash.
Sorry, had to point it out. Sorry, Killer.
Yeah, I mean, what?
I really like the top 2 of this team. I will say. I think Urshifu Slowking is very, very hard to deal with because most of your answers to Urshifu just cannot force progress on G-King.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd probably say that this is a pretty decent, I think, offensive team. It has a pretty good offensive synergy and like the tools to win every game, which mainly has it like this high. The hazard game is pretty decent. I wish it had more rockers though.
I
It
mean,
has good
Pharaoh's
breakers.
really reliable at setting in general anyway, so, I mean...
Yeah, just like Pharaoh Memo, like they're not gonna be mons that like you want to rock like consistently. I guess like this team's like biggest weakness is like it feels like it doesn't have quite enough good ways to get breakers in because like it's like the momentum mons are not very good to be frank. Like Main and Comfy are not gonna want to be clicking those a lot. I think with Ursh like you'd rather just like look at like quick attacks. I guess like Stoice is all right, but it's not like a
His
great
other
mon.
way is
You want to
Future
bring like
Sight
all the time.
G-King.
I don't know.
Like,
Future
yeah,
Sight G-King
I agree
is
with that.
really nice with Shifu.
I do. Yeah, his best pivot on this team is Blastoise, which Blastoise can be an okay pivot, but I definitely would not want that as my best pivot when I'm trying to pilot Urshifu. So I can see that. I think he's gonna have to hard commit to some plays, which can backfire.
I think this is another team where the bottom few mons are like, but I do respect the Ditto because Ditto is basically going to turn into an unban just about every week, which is funny.
Think about it that way. I didn't think about it that way.
It's like, I mean, it's not going to be quite as good as like Ditto and Ubers or anything, but especially because there's a lot of the unbans have set up ban to begin with, so like they're already forced into non-setup roles. But I mean, it still has the funny factor, and I'm here for that.
Yeah, I also think after Blastoise, the next best pivot being Comfey is pretty suspicious. So
yeah, I feel like the bottom 2 especially could have been something different.
At the very least, I actually really like Tauros. It's just
Tauros is fun, but
yeah, like I think it's a solid pick, but it might not be up for this team because
this team doesn't really have issues breaking to begin with.
I can see why you would want the 110 speed because you do get a bit of a speed gap between the benefit.
Actually, that is true. This team is on the slow, like it would be on the slower side without it because it goes Mega Main and then
I definitely see why you took
Tauros
it.
and then Shifu, or then Comfey and then Shifu. But that's not exactly.
For sure.
Unironically, I think he was gonna want to bring Shell Smash Blastoise a lot of weeks.
I think so too, because a lot of the special pressure isn't really like it comes from Mega Manectric and Magmortar, which aren't really good Pokemon.
Hey, Dragonite's good special too.
Dragonite is good special, but it might be forced into that too many times. Is the thing.
Yeah, it's not anything that stands out, but G-King and Dragonite both hit pretty hard on the special side too, so it's not terrible. It's definitely workable. You can definitely win a lot of games with this team. Which is cursed because it has a Mega Manectric on it. But yeah.
I think how many points did we make that this season? It was cheap as fuck. I think it was like 3 or 4 or something. But
hey, I mean, someone drafted it, so it works.
Yeah. Anyway, on to number 6 with Spies.
My alternate account, but don't tell DGBA that.
No, he has Torn and Garchomp. Holy shit.
Yeah,
this was
it's so weird because normal.
This was Backwheel Garchomp Torn. By the way,
it's so weird because normally with Sword and Shield, those are like 2 top 5 picks, but with so many unbans, he just ends up both with Backwheel.
To be fair, the round 1 Mega Scissor probably helped that a little bit.
That's true. But I'm here for it. I will say I don't personally find Mega Gyarados that impressive about doing anything. I think the most impressive aspect of it is its weirdly high speed F stat, but
There's always
they
that
don't
fun
like
fact where it has
soaking.
like more bulk than Umbreon or whatever.
Yeah, it's deceivingly bulky, but I feel like it never does as much damage as you want it to do. But
I don't really know if it
I
needs to on this team.
this team does have like a lot of ways to still like do stuff. Like as Swords Dance, Garchomp, you have Tornti, you have Savali, you have Bucephalon. I just
The
don't know
crab.
how
Do
the
not
Mega Gyarados
forget
type's
about.
weird to me.
Do not forget about the crab.
I guess he just wanted the Dark type. Oh yeah, Big Crab. I forgot Big Crab. But he has the Trick Room soaking into it as well. You know,
Yes.
secret. Everything is a Trick Room team.
It feels like my biggest problem with this team is that it feels like a failed attempt at torn balance, because I feel like it's missing a lot of crucial aspects of like what a torn regen team in theory would want, because like you need more hazards because like he has a Garchomp and like that's about it. Um, uh,
It is.
you need the
That's
Force
literally
Progress.
his only hazard setter.
Yeah, you need a better defensive fairy usually, because Melmetal is a dragon absorber on this team, which is pretty not good, and he basically just like filled the rest with breakers, which is okay. So like, he kind of has to win quick offensive games, which is why the team is high, because it is pretty like capable of it. It's pretty strong offensively, and like he will have a multitude of good mons to bring to basically any given matchup. So this team is solid enough.
I do think he did after he picked Torn. I do think he did go with the autopilot of Regenerator equal good, which is it's not a horrible saying to go by, but
Valley is his fairy type, and I wasn't a huge fan of that because it's gonna have to come fairy every week, and now you're just
I
spending.
think losing an item slot does suck on your
Oh,
fairy.
yeah.
However, I will say, like, considering it's kind of hard drafting a good fairy anyway, especially when it's round 5. You know what? I respect it.
Especially with the budget too, like Chomp Torn, those are both 20-point mons, I believe.
It's just a good Gumon. It's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's fine being a fairy type every week, but there also is a bit of a struggle to like he can beat Waters with like he has Taunt Torn and Chomp and Melmetal all both kind of put pressure on it already, but like actually breaking Waters might be an issue because he doesn't have an electric type and his grass is Tangela, but he can probably still
unironically,
beat
he
them.
might bring NP like Grass Knot Torn a lot of weeks just to break Waters.
True.
Like that might be pretty annoying because then you're not really like using it for like the other stuff Torn can do. You have to purely commit to offense, which could be annoying.
And there's
I feel
also
like this team
power.
wants
There's also
to try to
Power
visit.
Whip Gira. That's
True, but that's the real reason why Gira was taken. I forgot. You get the
it's
sub up
the grass
Yeah,
type.
this team is pretty weak to knockoff.
It is.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
I can see it. Mega
It
Gira
is,
is
but
a good
I feel like
doctor,
most
but
regen
that is
teams just going to be are going to be anyway. But I mean, Slow Valley Fairy's coming just about every week, so it might be a little less weak to knock than.
Oh, yeah, true. Savali also has a knock absorber. He does have 2 knock absorbers. That's okay. But I'm not a big fan of Mega Gyarados. I was vibing with this team's top 6. Audino was very based, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Gyara. I feel
Yeah.
it's pretty underwhelming. And I think Bucephalon is kind of slept on. So I like that.
I think
like
Bucephalon's pretty nice on this team for the breaking.
Yeah. Especially the special breaking, because Torn isn't always reliable with it. So it was a good pick, in my opinion, on his part.
If we can move on to the top 5 with Kaif. What are you guys' thoughts on this team? I thought it was pretty interesting.
Naganadel Lander seems really annoying to deal with.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
So with like just the top 5 bonds, like those are pretty hard. Like Heron being the easiest bond to switch into on your top 5 is a pretty good thing to say about a team, you know?
No, it's huge. That's not his top 5. My bad. But yeah, that's true.
Do not sleep on the shark. I will say regular shark I think is better here, but Mega Shark is still based. And I'm not biased at all having the regular shark on my team.
I understand the UC pick. Like helps with this pivoting and stuff. Like I like the team overall. I think Machoke and Eldegoss are kind of bad picks. You're not bringing them.
There are no points left. I mean, if anything, it's like maybe save on the Alolan Persian and get like. I mean,
I think
even then though, the bottom 3 picks were made with so few points that like it's hard to actually take good mons that actually support your team well more than once or twice a season. Because that top 6 is expensive.
Yeah. And also, I just appreciate the ground resist Buzzwole with Heatran. Like, it's very good.
Yuxi as well.
Yuxi.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think the top in this team is built really, really well. I'm not sure if the bottom necessarily supports it, but that's not as necessarily a big of a problem. Like,
I do like that his team was able to flex between offense and I think defense. Like he does like I think have a lot of mons that are really good for that. Like Heatran, Prim, Buzzwole mostly. It like gives this team an air of like flexibility that I really like, and their weaknesses are mostly covered. I guess like the biggest thing is I wish that like there was more to like sponging a special dragon, because like I think Prim and the Heatran will probably get pressured over time. I think if this had like a double fairy or like a double steel, I like it like a lot more, but I don't know.
and that could be hard to get as well. So I get why not having it.
It's kind of again like with your top 6, you have so few points that you're not going to get a good secondary fairy or steel. Like you might get like a Clefairy at most, but even Clefairy we made on the expensive side here.
Like, yeah, and also I will say just drafting 3 offensive tanks like with Heatran, Primarina, and Buzzwole is pretty cool because you do, as Veno said, you do get that flexibility, and yeah, they're also demon potential Scarfers as well if you ever need it as well. So because they're naturally hard to switch into.
Yeah. Move on to top 4. Fourth is Jeremy. What are your guys' thoughts?
This team is very flexible, I'd say, or it has a lot of other given ways it can win a game, because like it has a lot of great offensive mons. I like DOS Dia Crook. I like Urshrapid Sarmy. Like all of those mons both have a like great flexibility between offense and defense. He has a pretty good like Scarfers, great hazard game. Like overall, just a very solid draft. I guess like the biggest weakness is like it is pretty unorthodox and like weak to some pretty like common types. Like electric types feel very scary. Like fighting types are not great for this, and like it just overall it feels kind of glass cannon-y, but he does like have the tools to win a glass cannon type game, which is kind of what I like.
I mean,
he also has a Beartick, and Beartick is sick, so I hope this team does well.
I think Theo is a really was built really well around, because it's also a mon that can beat a lot of the new offensive threats that we have. Like it can outspeed the +1 Blaziken. It can revenge you can even revenge Darkrai if Darkrai's chipped enough and shit like that. And I think it's just the breaking around it's really good. A lot of the low tier picks seem kind of weird. I mean, the Hail Core is probably like what 4 or 5 points total. Like, so that's kind of whatever. Well, like I mean, Spiritomb in particular is kind of a mon that I'm not entirely sure what it's doing here, but like it's also a cheap mon, so it's kind of whatever.
Yeah, I was saying Demon Dustclops go crazy on this team.
So true. Just ignore the crocodile.
I will say, even if his low tier picks are like a bit weird, they all have pretty good stats in general, and they're definitely bringable. They can all hit pretty hard if you want them to. So I appreciate that on my low tier picks personally. I do value that a bit more. Also, I was going to point out, round 2 Mega DNC is so cursed, but like makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was towards the back end of the draft, I believe. I think Mega DNC went undrafted in our Quick Feet pool, so that's probably the bigger story, but this isn't about Quick Feet. I mean,
you don't talk about it.
There's like a couple new Megas, and I don't know. I think people were wanting to try new shit. Like a lot of the low tier megas were taken. Like we just saw Mega Manectric, we just saw Mega Sharpedo. So it being around for round 2, I guess makes sense if you were trying to build your team either to aim for a good low tier mega or like getting one of the broken ones like Mega Zam or Mega Lottie.
Yeah, it definitely does make sense. It's just very, very weird to see. Yeah, I think this team starts off very well. I think Starmie is a pretty slept on mon, even still. I think even like Meteor Beam and stuff like that was super threatening, analytic.
You're forgetting I got Meteor Beam this gen.
Meteor Beam Starmie is fire. And it shouldn't be hard to like switch in like the first time. Like ideally you just don't switch into it. But same with Urshifu Rapid. Like I really like the offense on this team.
Yeah, I agree. Now we can move on to top 3 with Nicholas.
I would just like to say, I have no idea if I picked first, but he did copy my Mega Zam Landers Therian, so you know, top 3 for a reason.
So true.
His like Mega Zam Lando Tikira Menchao Celesteela, like that's kind of crazy.
That's a round 6 Steela, by the way.
Yeah, that's crazy. Also has triple flying, so I automatically love this team. I just love this team. This team's fun. That's Munchlax, Lancer. That's a bunch of mods I love. So
Like Toucanon.
yeah, I forget that exists too.
Basically, Mega Zam, Lander T, Kyurem, Steel, and Mienshao is the most like threatening core in this entire draft, bar none. And like the defensive mons are okay enough at supplementing them. Like he has a fairy. I like Bulky Psychic plus like an extra rocker to, you know, I get like the strong fightings. Another Volt immunity. Like his low tier mons are pretty conscious of like what his weaknesses are. So like I like that.
The
I
only
guess, like
thing
the biggest weakness, yeah, that's like a couple of like the resist. The dark resist are pretty shoddy.
Not
the rock resist are
team.
pretty shoddy. So like it doesn't really fare well against some common types, but like it's a pretty good team.
Yeah, the offense, like even though it might struggle against a few, the offense is genuinely good enough to where I feel like you could position yourself to play better. So I do appreciate that with teams.
I feel like this team will still be able to out pressure most like Mega Zam. It's even for dark types, like Zam is still going to be really hard to pivot into, and then like Lando, Hiram, Steela can all handle a lot of them, either chip a lot of them neutrally or like straight up handle them, and then Mienshao, like if there's a faster dark type, you can just slap a Choice Scarf on it, and then there's really no like it's just really splashable against a lot of them because of regen.
I will also say I think Lantern is a pretty underappreciated low tier Glumon as well. Like
I think Lantern's pretty nice here, especially with
it's a nice pivot.
Especially with triple flying.
I do appreciate the Lantern pick.
Yeah, I really like this team a lot. I think that the offense is just broken on it, but
the defense isn't like great.
the defense isn't bad either. Yeah, I mean big Munch too.
That's Intimidate Lando. Big Intimidate Lando. It's a decent bulk with Mass Spirit, Celesteal, and stuff like that. So I like it.
Move on to second place, Mr. Data, with so much offense on this team. I love it, honestly. But what are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, it just feels like very like synchronous. Like the mons will like come together to win the games, and like they all cover like each other pretty well. Like to the point where it has a great like flexibility between offense and defense, which is really good here. I like this team a lot in pretty much every facet, from, you know, I think offense to bulk to I think the hazard game. I think it just feels like a very like cohesive team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, Swirlix gets webs, right? Dumb question.
Swirlix does get webs. Do not sleep on Swirlix webs with like Victini, Vito King, Mega Hera.
All I'm saying, Defiant Empoleon though, that's crazy. And
also, Empoleon with
he brought a punish.
Oh my god. Hating
But
with
yeah,
the
that top
strats.
7 is really good. The top 7 is really good, and Hatterene can be an okay bring sometimes, I guess. I mean, even though it might seem like okay, the bottom ones are so unbringable, but the top is it's so top heavy, it doesn't really matter.
Top 7 is insane.
Like you should be able to revenge most stuff with Rillaboom, Darker, Victini, like most of the stuff that would give you problems. So yeah, I really like it.
I mean, I don't really know if there's much more to say. Like, the offense is just there. It's going to put so much pressure on teams that it's going to be really difficult to deal with it.
Oh, it's also I guess it's worth noting it's built well with terrain in mind because again, making EQ weaker for stuff like Empoleon Victini is nice, and then you also have a special ground that's not affected by it at all. So
Yeah. Look, what about Earthquake Mega Hera?
oh, true. Unfortunate fate, Mega Hera. Awful pick, I guess, because
I want to say it gets other ground moves, but I don't think it really matters that much.
It also just gets close combat.
It also just gets close combat. You're right. But what about the poison types? But anyway, yeah, that's pretty good number 2. And now, process of elimination. Unfortunately, it is Dasa at number 1. I hate the fact that it's Dasa, but this is a pretty fucking good team.
Yeah, I think Blaziken can be insanely good in this format, and like Coco, Hydreigon, Blastoise are all pretty great pivots, and also I just think his bottom ones are built pretty well. Like they're all pretty good outside of Maractus.
Practice was
Yeah,
one
pretty
point.
much,
Like
yeah.
he had 1 point, and
I know.
he got a, and I'm pretty sure he just got it for the grass that could resist ground because of how edgequake
He
weak this
got it for
team
the
is.
Dracovish. He got it for the
Pretty much,
Dracovish.
yeah, pretty much like every mon like on this team like feels like it fills a good role, which is kind of like the only team like in the league that I think does this. I feel where like every mon feels like a supports like another mon like on like the team, or like kind of like fills some kind of like offensive or like,
Yeah.
bulky hole.
That
Like,
was
it's a very good team.
Yeah, that was my big thing too. Was like the low tier bulk options are like they support the team so well. Like Licky Licky Mush, like those aren't expensive mons at all, but they can provide so much value for this team. And they're like even with the top, 5 or 6, they could still be brought a lot of weeks, which isn't really something you're seeing from a lot of these drafts. Like a lot of our big complaints are how the low tiers just don't make sense, but this is not the case for this draft at all.
Yeah, the biggest problem with it is just the fact that the rockers are not very you running Rock Queen isn't very ideal a lot of the time because a lot of times you have stuff like T-Spike, you have coverage moves you want to run, you have taunt, like you have other stuff you want to mess with.
I feel like
And-
Nidoqueen's also less pressure to be offensive with this team. Like
That's true too.
especially the fact that it's a Nidoqueen and not like a Nidoking. Like I've
Better
ran a
bulk,
draft
yeah.
before, like with a heavily offense, and then there's the Nidoqueen there, and like if it's on a more offensive team, I feel like it doesn't mind being the rocker or that often because the other mons around it can just break so well.
Yeah, that's true. And also like Copper Jaw can be a fine rocker for a week or two, so it's not that awful. That's probably like the most glaring thing to me about it.
Don't forget about Big Spike's Maractus.
Oh, yo, true.
Caprad,
Like-
like, yeah, I like the team is pretty good hazard overall. I feel. I guess like that's its biggest weakness, but like it's still fine because most of the mons like Queen and Raj will like consistently set rocks at least.
Yeah, I think it just slotting it could be the problem. It's not necessarily that they're bad rockers. It just I think slotting it could be a bit of an issue. But sometimes, hey, they might not even need rocks.
Yeah, with Blaziken, I mean, Blaziken likes rocks. Kartana likes rocks, putting them into kill range. But I mean,
Everyone likes rocks. You
but
know.
yeah, that is true. But Blaziken also just appreciates damage from other mons too. Blaziken appreciates a lot of things.
Yeah, and I mean also, Spikes Maractus, demon set.
So true.
And I mean, it does help that like he does technically have hazard stacking options with like T-Spice and Spikes, and the fact that he probably has the best rapid spinner, I'd say, in the format. So like it's definitely not like a weak hazard game. Just I do think it might be hard to slot some weeks, but as you said, because there's so much offense, running defense in Nidoqueen isn't really much of a drawback. So that is fair.
And even like Coco and Hydreigon can be bulkier options. They can be either bulkier options or offensive, which is nice.
Yeah, that's true.
This team just feels the most complete by far, I think.
And also, terrain support with Blaziken seems pretty annoying to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you think about it, like I think a lot of the better answers to Blaziken are probably gonna be like the bulky waters, and if you have terrain up, you have the boosted Thunder Punch. That's gonna be really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's still gonna be like Slowbro packs, but like even they can't really afford to be chipped as much as they would be otherwise. And again, those are gonna be on 3 teams technically. Well, I don't think Mega Bro got drafted, so 2 teams. Did Pex even get drafted? I don't remember seeing a Pex.
I don't remember seeing a Pex.
That might make this even better.
It's
about to go crazy here.
What does it hit like Swords Dance, Earthquake, and stuff like that? If it, oh no, no, right, it's banned. Never mind. I'm just seeing regular Blaziken for some reason. Excuse me. It does have like ways to hit it, so and pressure it.
Anyway,
but, yeah.
So that is.
Wait, is it under? I don't remember. Is it unrestricted Blaziken?
I think it is unrestricted.
I'm getting my leagues mixed up. I'm sorry.
Are you thinking of? You're probably thinking of TBC then.
I'm thinking of the TBC. Okay.
Yeah. So we made a big deal about the raw chicken. But like either way, like even if Sword Dance wasn't allowed, it can still just win games so reliably with Protect and then Snowball with the right support. And I think this team has the right support.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, that would be it for our PRs. I'm actually happy that this wasn't that long. Only an hour. Not bad at all. Again, this is all subjective, so yell at us if you want. I don't know if Peyton and Veno care, but I don't really care. But
I care immensely. I worked hard on these PRs. I'm kidding.
Yeah, same.
So true. Anyway, so we're gonna sign off, but this was a real pleasure. So, see ya.